Hey Daniel, say cheese.
This 13-year-old boy's face would go on to become one of the most recognisable faces in Australian history. A case that will echo in the Australian police halls for many years to come. This is the story of Daniel Morcombe. G'day there everyone, welcome to Bedtime Crime, a channel dedicated to serial killers, murder stories, and much more. So remember to like and subscribe, and if there are any stories you'd like to hear, please leave a comment. Let's get into today's story. Daniel James Morcombe, born on December 19, 1989 in Melbourne, Australia, to Bruce and Denise Morcombe. Daniel had two brothers, older brother Dean and twin brother Bradley. The Morcombe family moved to Palmwood's Sunshine Coast in Queensland when Daniel was 4. The Sunshine Coast has beautiful beaches and rolling picturesque hills. When driving on the highway through the Sunshine Coast area, you're faced with tall trees and it seems quite peaceful. Daniel's parents would become franchisers for a tree pruning and removal company and were making a comfortable living. Daniel would attend Siena Catholic College at Sippy Downs with his brothers. On weekends, Daniel and his brothers would work a part-time job for some pocket money at a neighbouring farm. Daniel was described as a normal, quiet and kind boy. He wasn't a troublemaker and in fact showed a lot of maturity. He was able to navigate his way around the Sunshine Coast area and run errands by himself. However, on one of those normal days for Daniel would turn out to be not so normal after all. It was the 7th of December 2003 on a Sunday afternoon. Christmas was a few weeks later, and Daniel planned to go down to the Sunshine Plaza shopping centre to do some Christmas shopping and, while he was there, get a haircut. Around 1 PM, Daniel left the house and headed down to an area where he would sometimes catch the bus. The bus stop wasn't an official bus stop, but buses would often stop there to pick up passengers. Daniel arrived at the bus stop hoping to catch the 1:35 PM bus. However, the bus failed to show up. What Daniel didn't know was not too far up the road, the bus he was due to take had broken down. What Daniel also didn't know was at the same time that he was waiting, a man in a white four-wheel drive has just passed him, quickly exited, and parked his car at the Christian Outreach Centre car park just behind the bus stop. The man in the car is Brett Peter Cowan, known to police for drug and theft charges, but even more sickening and disgusting, known to be a violent child sex offender. Cowan has always been a dangerous man. In 1989, Cowan, 18 years old at the time, sexually assaulted a student in a toilet cubicle at a childcare centre in Brisbane. He was working by the childcare centre due to community service he had to serve for a break and enter and stealing charge. Cowan was only sentenced to 2 years for raping the young boy, a sentence that was shockingly short. But what is even worse is that he only served just over a year of that sentence. Cowan also sexually assaulted and violently beat a 6-year-old boy who lived in the same caravan park as he did. Cowan took the young boy into the bushes and after assaulting and beating him, dumped the young boy in an old burnt out car shell boot with rocks on top, so it would be hard for the boy to escape. However, the boy did escape, and when returning back to the caravan park, reports say it looked like he had been in a road accident. Cowan was caught once again and sentenced to 7 years, this time only serving 4.5 years. He has also been accused of sexually assaulting a 15-month-old child, a 12-year-old boy, and a child around the age of 7 years old at a local swimming pool. Brett Cowan was the scum of the earth. It's sickening to hear the crimes that he committed, and even more upsetting that he was released early twice. all these lucky situations for Cowan would eventually lead to the unfortunate event for Daniel and his family. Cowan has passed Daniel waiting on the side of the road, exited, and now parked at a nearby car park. He heads down to where Daniel is waiting for the bus stop, acting like he too is waiting for the bus. However, unluckily for Daniel, the replacement bus doesn't stop to pick up Daniel. As mentioned before, it's not an official bus stop, and reports say that because the buses were behind schedule, they decided not to stop for Daniel. However, the driver who passed Daniel recounted seeing Daniel and two men. It's unsure if there was another man at the scene, but as far as we know, there was only Daniel and Cowan. Since the bus didn't stop, Cowan saw this as an opportunity to talk to Daniel. According to Cowan, he asked if Daniel wanted a lift to the Sunshine Plaza shopping centre. However, it's very well known that Cowan is a pathological liar. It's hard to imagine that Daniel would agree to go into a stranger's car. Daniel was a smart boy. He knew right from wrong. He was mature, and not too young to know that jumping in cars with strangers is a bad idea. Could this have just been a lapse in judgment for Daniel? Possibly. Could Cowan's description he gave be a lie? Also possible. The only one who truly knows how Daniel ended up in the car is with the man who would later go on to kill Daniel. Whichever way Daniel ended up in the car, Daniel was now driving with Cowan. Now heading 30 kilometers south to an isolated farming area near the Glasshouse Mountains. It was here where Cowan would strangle, abuse, and murder Daniel. Around 4 p.m, Daniel's parents arrived home from a Christmas work function in Brisbane, a little over 100 kilometers away from home. Around 4:15 p.m, Daniel's mum goes down to the bus stop to pick up Daniel. She arrives at the bus stop, where the bus comes every half past the hour. It's now 4:30. The bus arrives, but Daniel is nowhere to be seen. Worried, but trying to think positively, Daniel's mum heads back home, assuming he might be on the next bus. An hour goes by and Daniel's father goes down to the bus stop this time. But when Daniel doesn't get off the 5:30 bus, that's when the parents really started to worry. Daniel's parents then went to the Sunshine Plaza where Daniel was supposed to be. Finding no signs of him there, they went to the Maroochydore police station at 7:30 p.m. The police took details of Daniel but said that this situation could just be a misunderstanding or a miscommunication between Daniel and his parents. The police said that he could just be running late and they will check back with the parents later this evening. There was a lot of criticism surrounding the police about Daniel's investigation, saying that they should have acted sooner. It is presumed by that time that Daniel would have already been dead. However, if the police had acted faster, would they have gotten Cowan earlier? What do you think? Around this time in Australia, these sorts of cases on the news were few and far between. Social media was not around. However, these days, if someone is missing, their face can be shared all over the world in just a matter of seconds. However, with this sort of technology unavailable at the time, Bruce and Denise Morcombe made it their mission that Daniel's face would be the most seen face in all of Australia. I still remember when I saw Daniel's face in the newspapers and on TVs and signs. Cowan was actually interviewed on the 21st of December 2003, 2 weeks after the disappearance of Daniel. The police were all aware of his past, but with no evidence at this point to link him to the disappearance, and a list of other child sex offenders to interview, Cowan was able to continue on with his life. It must be haunting for the police who interviewed him at that time. The killer was right there in front of them. So close, and yet he was able to walk around for many more years. Days turned into weeks, weeks to months, and months to years. Even years after going missing, Bruce and Denise would be seen on TV from time to time. Though at this point most of the nation presumed that Daniel was dead, Bruce and Denise kept looking. They weren't going to give up until they found Daniel and the person who took him from them. Bruce and Denise would go as far as to conduct interviews themselves, even interviewing known pedophiles to get as much information as possible. While Bruce and Denise would conduct their own investigation, the police were working alongside with them and also carrying out the official investigation. In 2010, they convinced the coroner to hold an inquest to cross-examine the list of persons of interest connected to the case. In simple terms, a person of interest can be asked detailed questions regarding a case, and under oath, the person of interest should answer truthfully. As mentioned before, Cowan was one of those persons of interest on the list. At this point, police were very focused on Cowan. It took 7 years, but the police started to chip away the information around Cowan. Cowan was the only person in question that was asked if he had killed Daniel Morcombe. During the cross-examination, Cowan said in what can only be described as very sickening, "I couldn't have abducted Daniel. Daniel is 13 and I like 6 to 8-year-olds. After the inquest was finished, Cowan was allowed to leave. However, police detectives had already been working on an operation to take down Cowan. The police felt that they had their man. Now it was time to get a confession. As mentioned earlier, Cowan was a liar. He felt no remorse or guilt. He didn't care about what he had done. So there would be no way the police would get a straight-up confession from Cowan. They had to find another way. On April the 1st, 2011, Cowan hops on a plane after the inquest, heading back to Perth, which is where he now resided. He sits down and starts talking to the passenger next to him. The passenger tells Cowan that he does some work that earns him a lot of money, but not in the legal sense. They talk the whole 5-hour plane ride back to Perth, and at the end, they exchange contact information and plan to meet up in the near future. What Cowan doesn't know is that this so-called criminal he has just become friends with is an undercover police officer, and the operation has just started. Cowan spends 5 long months of buddying up to the gang. Being in the gang involves the buying and selling of drugs, weapons, as well as debt collecting and pimping. Cowan, being extremely interested in this lifestyle, seemed to be fitting right in. The clueless Cowan is so deep in the act that's being put on him, it's almost pathetic. The gang tells Cowan that there is a big job coming up, a job worth over 100,000 Australian dollars. But before he can be a part of this job, he has to meet the big boss. On the 9th of August 2011, Cowan has a meeting with the big boss known as Arnold at the Hyatt Hotel in Perth. As the inquest was still going on at this point, Arnold told Cowan that he would help with his alibi. Arnold told Cowan that he needed to know everything about the Morcombe case, so he knew what to sort out to help Cowan. While Arnold and Cowan are having this conversation, Cowan is unaware that this meeting is being recorded. They continue talking until finally, just like that, Cowan goes on to admit to the abduction and killing of Daniel Morcombe.
So what do I need to fix?
Yeah, okay. No. Yeah, I do.
This is the confession that the police and the Morcombe family have been waiting for 8 years. Cowan tells Arnold that he offered to take Daniel to the Sunshine Coast Plaza Centre, to which, according to Cowan, Daniel agreed. Cowan says that he took Daniel to an abandoned house, but tells Daniel that he took him there to tell his wife what he was doing. They go into the house together and offers Daniel a glass of water. Cowan goes on to confess that he tried to sexually assault Daniel, but Daniel resisted and tried to escape. Cowan then chokes Daniel, and that's when Daniel dies. Cowan puts Daniel's body into the back of a car and then drives to a nearby bushland area where he dumps Daniel. He later throws Daniel's clothes and shoes off a bridge in a creek. Cowan says that he returned around a week later to dispose of any leftover evidence and possibly bury the body of Daniel. Arnold, the undercover police officer, was probably the most nervous, sick, and excited he has ever been in his life. He has the confession, but the confession alone isn't enough. Arnold and the gang decided to take Cowan back to Queensland to go to the location where Cowan killed Daniel. The very next day, Cowan, Arnold, and the gang fly back to Queensland and spend a couple of days hanging out. On the 13th of August 2011, Cowan takes Arnold and the gang to the site. Again, fully unaware that every move he is making is being recorded. On the way back to the car, that's when police move in.
Police! Stay there, Brett.
Stay there, mate.
Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Police.
Stay where you are.
Brett Cowan, Steve Blanchard, Detective Senior Sergeant from the Homicide Unit in Brisbane. Brett, we're here we're investigating the abduction and murder of Daniel Morcombe.
Yep.
You have the right to remain silent.
Yep.
You don't have to answer any question or make any statement.
Yep.
Do you understand that?
Yep. Just to tell them that I'm under arrest, am I?
Not at this time. If you're happy to remain with us and speak with us in relation to this matter.
No, you just can arrest me.
All right, you're under arrest for the murder of Daniel Morcombe.
Yep, cool. I'm under arrest for Daniel Morcombe's murder.
The operation is now over. From there, a search party was conducted to look for evidence and hopefully Daniel. 17 fragments of Daniel's skeleton were found between August the 23rd, 2011 and September 20th, 2011. Cowan was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison on the 13th of March, 2014. The search was now over, but the work isn't done for the Morcombe family. Bruce and Denise started the Daniel Morcombe Foundation. The foundation was started to provide education, protection, and support for children from abuse. If you would like to make a donation to the Daniel Morcombe Foundation, I will leave a link below. And that was the story of Daniel Morcombe. Another life taken too early from a person who doesn't deserve a life. Thank you for watching and listening to Bedtime Crime. If there are any stories you want me to cover or bring more attention to, please leave a comment. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.